How's everybody doing? Today's video is going to be a comparison between my cheapest guitar and my most expensive guitar. So this one is my cheapest guitar. This is a Sawtooth something or other. It's got kind of a lovely, memorable name. I've done a video on this guitar before. This is basically the base model of the Signature Series by Michelangelo Badio with Sawtooth. This one I got because he actually signed the back of the headstock, so I thought that was really cool. It's got a nice Sharpie signature on there, and it's just kind of a cool piece, but it's a cool piece for what it is. So you have to realize that there's a couple of drawbacks to a guitar hitting this price point. Obviously, it's a no frills type of finish. It's just like a flat black sort of. I actually enjoy this finish. It's pretty tactile. It feels good. It's got like a little bit of a texture to it, and it doesn't show fingerprints as much as you might think it would. But obviously, at the price that it is, this guitar is pretty much very basic. So it doesn't have any sort of visual frills, maybe except for the black block inlays, but that's about it. So you don't have any sort of binding, you don't have anything construction-wise that would cause them to have to put any more labor into building this guitar, hence why they can sell it for so cheap. I want to say when I got this guitar, it was actually under $300. So I will say that for what it is, the quality point is about on par with like maybe just under a modern Fender Mexican series, standard series, give or take. There's some points about this guitar that I like more than a modern Fender. There's some that I like less. For instance, the nut is very cheap, but the fretwork is surprisingly good, and the neck profile is surprisingly good. It's got a really good maple neck on this. A downside, I would presume that the electronics on this are a little bit cheap. The tuners are obviously a little bit cheap. You know, the bridge is very basic, sort of like stamped steel type thing, although it hasn't really seemed to wear, and I tend to wear bridges like instantly within playing a guitar like twice. They usually get finish wear. So this one hasn't done that, so that's pretty good. Basically everything on this is built to meet a certain price point, and considering that, I think they did a really good job of it. I actually like this guitar for what it is, which is kind of like, it's really the only super strat type thing I have left, and it's just kind of simple, you know, nothing real special about it. One volume, one tone, three-way switch, and it just works, but it doesn't really, you know, do anything special. And one downside to this is that the body is not made of the best wood, and as far as the tone goes, the neck of this guitar is actually performing pretty well by my estimation, but the body is like a sponge. So it's very lightweight, but it absorbs like a lot of the tone and character that you could otherwise get out of a really nice hunk of maple neck like this. You know, you could get a nice, bright, active sort of tone, but not really with the body that it has. So that's one downside to my perception of the materials that they used. So I'm comparing the Sawtooth to this, my most expensive guitar, which is my Gibson Les Paul Custom. This is like my baby. I play this thing all the time now. It's absolutely astonishingly good. But whereas the Sawtooth was about $300, this guitar was about $5,000. So that makes it 16 or 17 times more expensive than the Sawtooth, and just about as expensive as I would probably ever want to pay for a guitar. They don't, you know, there are guitars that are more expensive than that, but not really for any performance benefit. But to explain why it's so expensive, first of all, it's made in the Gibson Custom Shop in Nashville, so they have very skilled American workers making it. and they have to pay them a lot because of that. Secondary to that, you have the actual build quality, the fit and finish, and the appointments that they put into this, which takes a ton more labor hours than the Sawtooth has. So for instance, whereas the Sawtooth was a bolt-on neck, this one's a set neck. That right there is a much different process as far as labor intensiveness. And then you have the entire construction of a guitar like this, which is basically built in a very old school handmade style where everything is inlaid and bound to the guitar by hand. So all these different layers of binding are done by hand on the front and the back. Takes a ton of labor time. It has a separate top versus the back of the body, which the Sawtooth doesn't have. That takes more labor time, more materials. Of course, the materials that they use are going to cost a lot more on this. It has better hardware, better electronics. Essentially everything on this guitar is not only better than the Sawtooth, but way better than average. So that's why all the materials and all the labor time and all the additional visual frills that they give you, like the binding all over it, are going to just add cost, because I don't think they're really building Les Paul Customs to a price point. I think they're just building them and then they just go, here's what it costs. And I have just recorded the sound comparison portion of this video, and it was actually kind of shocking because I just got through saying that the Sawtooth, as far as the fit and finish of the neck, how it has the rolled edges, and it feels to me a little bit better than like a modern Fender standard neck. That's great, but I played that guitar first in the demo and then I switched to this guitar, and it was like a night and day difference as far as how easy it is to get around the neck. There's absolutely nothing rough, or there's nothing rough on the Sawtooth, but there is compared to this. So like, it's just so much of a smoother, buttery playing experience on a guitar like this than it is on pretty much anything else, much less a $300 guitar. And you're also going to see in the playing demo that the Gibson is drastically more harmonically active, or hopefully you can tell that. I mean, I was just doing the demo through my Mesa triple rectifier, all the same settings for both guitars. All I did was change which guitar I was using. It's a significant difference in terms of the experience playing one guitar versus another, but it's also, to me, a significant difference in terms of sound, and hopefully you can see the same thing. So there you go. That was the comparison between my cheapest and my most expensive guitar. You know, the Sawtooth, for what it is, it's actually, especially at the price that it is, it's very impressive. It's not low quality, it's just decent quality and a very low price. It's functional, but it doesn't really do a whole lot for me. Whereas the Les Paul Custom obviously is more functional as far as playability. It has more features, and it's just way better sounding, which you would expect because it's like 17 times more expensive than the first guitar. But, you know, if what you can afford is a Sawtooth, it definitely works. I've never had any problem with it, although I haven't played it all that much, so it's not like I've torture tested it. But, you know, the more you spend, the more you'd expect to have higher quality electronics and switches and things that can withstand heavy use as well. But, you know, the Sawtooth, totally functional, just not very inspiring compared to a Gibson Les Paul Custom. I don't know what people would really expect the outcome of this video to be, but hopefully that is a decent enough explanation for you. Also, it's worth mentioning that the rig that these guitars were being played through, being Boss RV6 reverb on dynamic and the Mesa triple rectifier, that is a high-end amplifier that is going to do a really good job to level the playing field no matter what guitar you're putting through it, because the amplifier itself is very harmonically active, and so it would be hard for any guitar to sound bad through an amplifier like that. So I'm not saying that the Sawtooth sounds bad through a cheaper amplifier either, but it just doesn't sound as active as a nicer guitar would sound that has a little bit higher quality construction and material choice as far as the body wood and things like that. If you like this video, don't forget to share it and subscribe, turn on notifications, and I will see you guys next time.